All right, let's do the battle of the most recent live action Superman. So we have Henry versus David. Now, first, we'll go through the physical stats. So, if they were to actually see each other in real life, Henry Cavill at this time was listed at 210 pounds and 6 foot one. So, I am taller than he is. With Dave, well, he's at 6 foot four and was 230 at this time. So, if you want to put them side by side, you would have Henry Cavill pretty much looking straight into Dave's nose and mouth area. So a little bit bigger. I will say when you compare how they looked physically, I think Cavill looked bigger. He's a little bit shorter guy, so he's able to put on probably a little bit more muscle definition, a little bit more in the way of mass. So let's get through this. And as always, I'm looking at just Man of Steel versus Superman 2025. So I will try my best to not include other feats that happened in the later DCEU movies. All right, first, let's go with intelligence. I'm going to give this one right away to the Man of Steel. In this way, you're looking at, does he get frazzled? Does he have any issues? Is he getting aggravated and blown up because he's being made fun of on Twitter? And you're also too looking at Man of Steel. He is farther along into his career of Superman, where in Superman 2025, he's, I think, 3 years into it. Fighting ability, again, don't have an issue giving this one to the Man of Steel. You have to look at who it is that he actually battled. So he battled two different Kryptonians who were military, one being General Zod. So the fact that he was able to hold his own against, elite level military trained Kryptonians, yes, when he fought the first one, she was still getting used to all of her advanced powers. By the time he fought Zod in the film's climax, Zod had fully acclimated and was still able to defeat Zod. I'm also going to give the nod here to Man of Steel when it comes to strength. Looking at what it was that he was actually able to do, I mean, they show the devastation that Man of Steel was able to do, and that ended up being the auspice for Batman versus Superman. And he also fought two Kryptonians as well as Kryptonian technology. He did a lot of that. Where when you watch Superman 2025, he had a hard time with a single Kryptonian, whether that Kryptonian was in a suit or outside of a suit. Speed. When you think about Ultraman, I'm gonna throw this out here. When I first heard there was Ultraman, I was hoping they would go with the alternate universe version, and I was like, if they unmask him and it's Henry Cavill, that would melt the internet, and people would either be super excited that he could be part of a multiverse, or really upset that he was used in this way. So in Superman 2025 is battling Ultraman, you're probably thinking, but he has some nice speed feats. Yes, but in the fight against Ultraman, there's multiple cameras. So how is Ultraman actually fighting? Lex Luthor has to see what is happening. He has to know what he wants to do for the next move. He then yells at somebody who then pushes a button. That button then lets Ultraman know what move to do. That is a tremendous amount of lag between when something is noticed and when something is done. That would be like if you tried to play a fighting game and instead of you doing the direct inputs, you had somebody else that you yelled what you wanted them to do. You're like, all right, throw Hadouken. Now block. All right, Hurricane Kick. Okay, Hadouken. All right, Dragon Uppercut. So the fact that he had a hard time battling somebody who had that much input lag, it's it's pretty laughable. Where in Man of Steel, he's flying all over. He is, you know, either battling the two Kryptonians or he's destroying some of the Kryptonian tech, the terraforming machines. Vulnerability. I don't really recall seeing Henry Cavill bleed as much as we saw, Dave bleed. I mean, Dave bled a lot. I mean, the opening sequence is, Dave has been beaten to a bloody pulp. Not to mention the fact that every time the dog jumped on him, the dog also cracked and broke ribs. Durability. All right. So how well did these guys do in a long term fight? Now, you can chalk this up to the fact that in 2025 there was Metamorpho who was able to drain Superman an awful lot, but we also noticed that Superman, after he got beat, pretty much had to get a super dose of sunlight in order to come back. Where you didn't see that in Man of Steel. Again, you look at a character who's been around longer, so he definitely has spent years absorbing and fully immersing his cells in solar energy. Energy projection. They're both have the same abilities. I'm gonna give this one to Henry Cavill. While looking at what we saw Superman 2025 do, he didn't do anything that was incredibly impressive and impactful. Where in Man of Steel, you know, a a reason for lots of that story, at least what should have been the story beats for Man of Steel 2, which they never made, was the amount of raw devastation Superman was able to do when he battled other people of similar powers. Versatility. I'll give this one to Superman 2025. And this just comes down to the dog. I mean, think about his battle with Ultraman. He was getting the daylights beaten out of him. I will also say the heat vision to Superman's own eyes was a cool move, and then showing him like his eyes kind of like sunburned. But the fact like he needed the dog essentially to help him win the majority of his fights. So I'm like, that's the one advantage he would have when it comes to things that Henry Cavill didn't have access to. And then for X Factor, this is the Justice Gang. I have a feeling that if Henry Cavill Superman were to show up and were to just start flat out beating the daylights out of Superman 2025, the Justice Gang might have showed up. Ironically, what people talked about the best from 2025 is Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific. So it's kind of sad that you make a solo superhero film where what people remember most is the ensemble. So I think these two guys were to get into it. Again, Henry Cavill Superman is farther along in his career. I think he just straight out would beat the ever loving daylights out of Super Dave.